Hello, I'm Holder and welcome to the first animated battler development video. As you can see here, we've got Mira, and today I'm going to be focusing on the retreat pose. Now I've already got graphic scale open, and as I always tend to do, start from the idle pose, and I'll walk you through step by step about how I go about making this new pose. This is my first video, so obviously all comments and feedback are welcome, and I'm going to just jump straight in and just get started here. And I will be taking parts of the structure from other poses that I've made before. Helps with the flow of the battler and whatnot, and keeps the overall look correct. Now the first tip I would say is to know what sort of thing you'd like to do. I know it might sound obvious in certain cases, but from the sprite we've got here, we can see she is a white mage. So obviously you want something that's a bit soft and has a nice flow to it. Nothing that comes across too harsh or powerful. It's not a pose that will be used an awful lot. It may just be a rather static magic casting and things like that, but when it is used you don't want something that looks more like a charge. So here I've just basically took the legs and is just manipulating them, trying to get like a flowing backwards sort of pose. Wouldn't worry too much about the detail. I know here I am just getting some of the shades right, but it's mainly for the angle of the foot, so I know when I do turn it what sort of style I'm going to stop at. Backwards and forwards, always double checking with the idle pose just to make sure I'm not making the legs too long, short, thick or anything like that. And obviously from that stance as well, it will be the frame itself moving, not the sprite, so it's best to not move it too far from the center of the main one there. Now with rotations you'll not get a perfect rotate, you would have to do some editing afterwards, so again it is literally just going for the angle and how much that would stretch. Again, as you can see there, I wouldn't worry yourself too much about the details on the shading or anything like that, because that will be lost when you start to rotate. But because I've done the lighter leg and the darker leg, I can then see which leg I would like in front. Getting rid of any background. I always do tend to work with this background colour. It is like a personal favourite of mine. It's a lot easier on the eyes, as you can see here. Working with that white background, after a while it would really hurt your eyes, so pick a neutral sort of tone, nothing too light, nothing too dark, and you'll get this sort of contrast that would work in any sort of colour background. Obviously these battlers can be used with any battle background, so whether it be outside in the field or in a cave, you'll still see all the details as you would have intended. Basically getting the knee, now I always find that a bit of a challenge, getting the knee right. Does come to a complete halt and then angle down to the rest of the leg. Now the reason I'm doing this without that background on is so I can just instantly grab that background colour and just delete what I don't want. It doesn't have to be perfect, you can see just getting the shape of the bum here, just trying to angle it round and get in the correct position for like the hips and the join to the rest of the body. Again, not worrying too much about the actual dress itself, just as long as the shape's there, you can then go back later and add in any details like that. The reason why I like this design quite a bit as well is that red line. Now that line does help quite a bit, and you'll see that a lot later on as well. Again, doing the same again, instead of the foreground leg, it's now the background leg that's being worked on. Trying to make sure now I've always got the animated preview in the window there. The frame before is the idle one, so you would see how that would stretch into this new pose being created. Obviously when you're working on things like that, try not to worry about it too much. When you get to the stage where you'd like to have a look to see if it's working, you can always flip back and check on that later. Now the frame below is the non-transparent layer, so the higher frame you can always move around and get the angle right. Now I'm not too happy with the way the legs are actually working here and how she's actually going to go into this pose. So it's a perfect chance to cut from the top layer onto the lower layer. Give the legs a little swap round and see if that would work. Again, another bonus for not doing too much on the detail. You're not actually losing a lot of work here. The only confusing thing would be the shading, but again, that's just something you can change really quickly there. Getting the angle right just to make sure you can't see a bit of foot, because obviously if that leg was angled a bit differently you would only be able to see the top of the leg, which wouldn't look right in the final version there. So again, trying to go for something a little bit elegant. Obviously the legs bent slightly, one tucked behind the other. It's not going to be a regular sort of charge. I know a lot of sprite work likes to be exact with the outlines, but something I don't tend to concentrate on at the moment. Now again, I have focused a bit on the top of the dress there, just to give impression of it, the character flowing backwards, and the thickness of the body itself. Now you can see here in that animation it does peek forward just a little bit, but again it's not something that can't be shifted over. Going back there, again you've got the idle pose for the reference. You can see it does need moved over quite a bit. Again, taking another aspect from another frame that I've done. Now normally I do start with a basic static idle pose. It's great for keeping the shape of the body, and also parts like this where I know I'm gonna have to turn it slightly, but keeping the shape and the size is pretty much key for making all the other frames work without basically copying and pasting and making it look exactly the same for each pose. Again, I'm just merging the legs together there, just because I'm happy with how that's turned out. Just getting the position right. Like I say, the character itself wouldn't move, it would be the whole frame that's moving, which is why I've set up quite a small grid. I do have a pretty much a centre line I like the work do. Obviously I have the 32 pixels in front and the 32 behind. 32 in front is obviously for where any weapon animations would take place, so it always leaves room for that. Now just trying to join these two together. Again, the shape isn't perfect, so I'm just making room for the curve of the spine going into the shoulder blades on the back, and moving the chest area pointing more towards the left, adding a bit of shading just to curve around the side of the body there. And normally people would instinctively go for that leg in the background to be shaded. Now it is angled horizontally nearly, so it would be catching a lot of light from the light source that I use for these battlers, so don't be afraid just to add a bit of light. It does help with the angle there. Right, now I'm going to leave it at this for part 1. Now when we come back we'll be looking at adding the weapon in, and also the arms and the head and everything like that.